Welcome to the Wheelin' Podcast. This is Keith and Johnny Orange.
How's it going today, everybody?
How are you doing today, John?
I am not too bad. Had a pretty busy, interesting weekend, to say the least.
Why is that?
Well, I was working on a video shoot out in Imlay City with director Lance. The video shoot takes place in the Middle East, and we had a Humvee as one of the props on set. Earlier in the day, we had a minor accident. We punctured one of the tires, and we had to fix it.
So you had to fix a Humvee. So were you able to plug it, patch it?
Well, there were two 4-inch gashes in the sidewall, so no.
Duct tape?
Nah, we thought about it.
Didn't work?
I have seen some write-ups about stitching it with wire and then filling the gap with plugs, so that was a backup plan. The short-term plan, though, made a few phone calls. One of the gentlemen who is a fan of the Mora, Ken was his name, I believe. He helped us out with a couple things we needed, and we found a tire thanks to Facebook Marketplace. So we proceeded to swap the tire out.
On an H1 Humvee.
Yeah.
12-volt double bead lock?
Yes, sir. My first one. So I've seen a lot of write-ups on how to do this stuff. Not so much write-ups how to change them, but read a few things on the construction of the wheel. You know, it's two pieces. There's a run flat, there's an O-ring, and then, of course, the tire. So being the first time doing this, you know, the old tire, get rid of the old run flat, no problem. Cut the bead, pops right out. The problem is putting that run flat in the new tire, not so easy.
All right, so for our listeners here, John's talking about bead lock wheels.
Double bead lock.
Yeah, double bead lock. So let's back up here for a second. Double bead lock wheels sandwich the wheel to the tire and allows the tire, if it loses air, not to come off of the rim, off the wheel rim. And there's various ways of doing that. The military, since World War II, has been using double bead locks in some form or another, where they put an insert inside the tire, and then they bolt two halves of a two-piece wheel together. And then the two wheel halves bolted together now sandwiches the insert in the inside, which also on the H1 Humvee, the AM General Humvee, is a run flat. It has a ridge up the top of it. So I guess a good way to kind of picture this is kind of a skinnier donut inside of a bigger donut.
It's a good analogy.
Okay. So how'd you get the run flat in there, John?
Well, that was the best part of the whole day. So we tried different pry bars and flat bars and everything we could think of. And one of the gentlemen who was helping us out pulled up a YouTube video and saw me using a ratchet strap. So we broke two cheaper ratchet straps, trying to do it, didn't work. Then the owner of the place came up. Thankfully, he had a nice heavy-duty one in the truck, let us use. So we used the ratchet strap on the run flat to its maximum. We couldn't tighten this thing anymore without tools. There's myself. For those who can't see, I'm a bigger guy. We had another gentleman about the same size as me, a little smaller than me, and 5 other people with 3 pry bars, a large flat bar, the ratchet strap, and the only thing we could find to lubricate it with was some gear lube.
It must have stank.
Very much so. It was the rubber run flat, thankfully not the magnesium version.
Yeah, those bolt together.
Yeah, that would have probably been a lot easier than this. We probably messed with it total of around an hour and a half, but we finally got that thing in, and we were able to get it back on the wheel, get everything bolted up, air it up, get back on set, and got everything done we needed to with it.
What a pain in the butt. What an
really?
absolutely pain in the butt. And maybe one day in the future we'll do a whole podcast on beadlock wheels and some of the options that are available out there. That'd be a good time to cover more of the technical specifications of that. But I do not envy you. I've done probably 30 or 40 of those throughout my career.
Yeah, that was not fun. Ruined a good shirt doing that.
Yeah, no, not fun at all. So messing around with the old AM General Humvee, that's a pretty good segue into our topic today. We wanted to talk a little bit about the various kings of the SUVs. John, did you see the article that Jalopnik did on the Karlmann King that was at the New York Auto Show.
I did. I came across that and I read through it. I've got to say, I like the look of the thing. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's way overpriced for what it is. But I think the shape of it, the look of it, I find very cool, very unique in terms of a vehicle.
I would definitely recommend our readers or our listeners to look up the Karlmann King. Google it. It looks like a SUV that Batman would drive.
Yeah.
A lot of sharp angles, a lot of triangles.
Modified after the Stealth Bomber.
Yep, it's got a lot of stealth type technology, flat black, and it is based off of the F550 chassis, Ford F550, and they build this thing on there. And I believe it's bulletproof, is it not?
It's got a bulletproof option. There's an additional cost, and you can get it bulletproofed.
What's the base model price of this thing?
I've actually got the PDF up. If you bear with me just a moment.
I can tell you. I looked it up.
Oh, well, you beat me to it then.
$2.2 million.
Oh, right.
So that's the base price.
Yeah.
So do you think you're going to buy one of these?
No.
No? You're not going to?
No.
You're not gonna write that check yet for the.
That'll buy me a lot of Jeep parts.
It will, but
and
I mean,
Jeeps.
What would your monthly payment on that thing be? Maybe $30,000-$40,000.
I would imagine somewhere in that region. Sure.
Okay, you can't swing that right now, huh?
No, I don't think I could find anyone to fund me.
You don't make that as a podcast, voice?
No, not yet. I think there's some pretzels in a bowl over there. That's about it.
There you go. So the Karlmann King is currently kind of one of the most expensive SUVs in the world. There might be something more expensive out there, custom jobs, but this is a production vehicle. It's at least coming to production. You can buy one from them. Take a look at it. The inside is very luxurious. There's crystal and there's gold and there's all sorts of things.
It's got its own champagne cooler and reversible glass storage space.
Do you have one of those in your Jeep?
I mean, I've got a cardboard box in the back.
You don't have a champagne cooler?
No.
Oh,
no.
Man. I could use one of those. So, Jalopnik kind of, really went on to this thing and was saying that, it was burst of show, this and that, because of some of the build quality. I have my mixed feelings on that. I looked at it. It looks like they did kind of rush some things to get ready for the show. But I am very interested to see what the Karlmann King is going to become.
Absolutely.
Who's going to be buying these Saudi princes? Who knows? I mean, we could use one here at Wheeling. We would be more than, we could do a test of a Karlmann King. I have no problem with that.
We could permanently broadcast from it.
Oh, there you go.
That would be amazing.
That could be our new broadcasting studio.
Mobile broadcasting booth.
Coming live from our base model $2.2 million Karlmann King.
Yeah. Today we're sitting in the parking lot at McDonald's.
Yeah, absolutely. So imagine taking that through the drive-thru, huh?
That would be awesome.
Yeah. All right. So in your research, my research, we kind of put this out as some homework this week. We're talking about our Blessed American Excess, our giant SUVs, the big ones. And so we're kind of going to talk about the history of those, where they came from, what's been built, what's still being built today. John, in your research, I can tell you what I found in my research. In your research, who do you think was the first large SUV? And when I say large SUV, we're typically talking something that's truck-based, not car-based or medium-sized based. What did you find?
Well, I didn't quite have as much time as I thought to do a lot of the research. Very busy weekend. I know one of the first names that came to mind, and in a lot of what research I did do, is the Chevrolet Suburban.
The Chevy Suburban, of course. Came out in
1935.
1935. Yep. Okay, see, I thought it was 33, and that, see, you did better research on me than that. So 35. So the Chevy Suburban still exists today, obviously.
Yep, it is the longest continuous use nameplate in production.
Okay, so that actually beats out the Toyota Land Cruiser, which came out in 52.
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Well,
so
definitely.
So the Suburban, I didn't know that. So the Suburban's the longest continuous nameplate. Even like the Ford F-150 and the Ford F-Series started back in, I think, 48. So if the Suburban started in 35, you said?
Yes.
35?
Yeah, first generation was 1935 to 1940.
Okay, so those first Suburbans, and I've seen those. Those were truck based. They had a passenger compartment on the back. Probably sat 6 or 7 people, something like that.
Somewhere around that, yeah.
And those were not 4-wheel drive, though, were they?
No.
No.
Built on a half-ton truck frame. So I got my notes here. Could seat up to 8 occupants.
The first ones?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's pretty impressive. So the Suburban, kind of connecting to something that we've done at the museum. The first time that I'm aware of the Suburban receiving 4-wheel drive was in the early 50s when you could order one with a NAPCO conversion.
Oh, wow.
And we talked about that in our last podcast, the NAPCO
Yep.
4x4s. So that would be the first 4-wheel drive large SUV or that would be Chevy's first time being a 4-wheel drive large SUV. There's something that predates that. Are you aware of what predates that?
Not off the top of my head, no, sir.
Okay, so it's a 1-year only thing. During World War II, the Dodge WC series, which is what predates the Power Wagon, they made the WC-53 in 1942 only. And it was similar to the Suburban, but it was 4-wheel drive. And some of the guys even called it a Dodge Suburban at the time, although that was technically not the right name. It was they would call it a carryall. That name kind of stuck over the years, and eventually people even started calling some of the Suburbans carryalls because they were GIs that came back from the war. They were familiar with the WC-53 Dodge, which was called a carryall. And like I said, it was a 1-year only thing. I don't know why it was a 1-year only thing. Maybe the government decided it wasn't that useful at the time. But they ended up, that name kind of got used for some of the early Suburbans.
Yeah.
So I guess it's an honorable mention because it was not something that was produced for the civilian market. The Suburban, as we know, was still civilian market. And, so then the Suburban, like we said, eventually went to the NAPCO 4-wheel drive. And then it was a pretty heavy-duty 4-wheel drive and off-road vehicle that you could also take your family to, wherever you needed to go. And you could tow your big Airstream trailer or whatever you were towing. Then Chevy decided to start downsizing the Suburban for the 92 model year, when they went to independent suspension and they ditched the solid axle in the front and the body started getting smaller and more car-like. And today, even the Suburban is a little bit smaller yet, and it's more of a luxurious vehicle.
Yeah,
not as luxurious as the Karlmann King yet.
No, not quite. There was, I don't remember the year, but something else I came across in my notes. GMC started making a version of that at one point, which is what became the Yukon.
Yeah, that's right. So, the GMC, it was called a GMC Suburban and a Chevy Suburban, but eventually they split off, and GMC started making the Yukon, and then even eventually Cadillac started branding the Suburban body with a different front end on it, and they called it the Escalade.
I did not realize that was related.
Yeah, so they're all the same body. They're all GM. They all have the same GM heritage there. So GM seems to really make a lot of large SUVs.
Oh, yeah.
We got to give them that. And the other GM connection, and this is another honorable mention, we were just talking about that Humvee that you had to deal with this weekend. GM decided to make the Humvee, or they partnered with AM General to rebrand the Humvee into the H1, which was the public version. You could buy it, and you could go buy pretty much a military Humvee with a fancier interior.
I've seen a few of those.
Yeah.
Never ridden in one of those. But
they're pretty cool. They're a little tight on the inside because you have your engine and your transmission between you.
That I believe. The military one I was in was pretty tight fit as well.
Exactly. And they... that's more of a military vehicle, though, and it's not really a big SUV. There was backs available for it. It was a convertible type vehicle where you could mount different types of backs and tops to it. And then, of course, the NATO copies of that all around the world, you'd also get an honorable mention to as well. There's some Spanish versions. I don't remember what the Spanish versions were called. And then Toyota over in Japan made the Toyota Mega Cruiser, which is kind of a H1 knockoff of sorts. Looks a lot like it. So those are all kind of honorable mentions. They all have the same lineage. They were all through the NATO military vehicle program.
Yeah.
And, so it wasn't that they were really being copied on purpose. These were designs and specifications that were given to them by the U.S. government.
Yeah.
So the U.S. government kind of designed those. So, that's, you know, GM has had a very diverse route or diverse history and very rich history in the large SUV market. We've seen a lot of different things in that. They had the Suburban, which eventually got really big, and then they had as you know, the Yukon and the Escalade.
Yeah.
Were you looking up some specs over there on those, or?
I'm pulling a few things up, just trying to follow along. I pulled a picture up of the Mega Cruiser here.
But what do you think of that thing?
It's different. It looks like a Toyota version of the Hummer.
It does, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty neat.
Very cool.
Actually, I think we need to back up even a little bit here, and we need to give some more honorable mentions. So we're talking about these long SUVs that have towing capacity and whatnot, but they're not the only truck-based SUVs. GM made a two-door version it's not really a two-door version of a Suburban, but in 68, I believe, they came out with the Chevy Blazer.
I've seen more than a few of those.
And that was based off of the Chevy pickup truck, but the first couple generations there, or the first few years, the top completely removed. So it was a fully convertible vehicle, but it was still based off full-size pickup truck. So that's a large SUV as well. And then, we also had, of course, the Ford Bronco, which originally started out small as a small SUV. And, that came out in 66 and stayed pretty tiny until 1977.
Yeah.
And then eventually in 78, they based it off the F-Series truck again. So, I think we're going to take a quick break. And
sounds good to me.
We're going to come back with some more talk about the large SUVs. And we're kind of working on our countdown here. We didn't really put this as a 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 type thing, but we're doing this as a countdown to some of the largest production SUVs that either were available or are still available today. All right, we'll talk to you after the break.
Have you heard the good news? Now there's a local paper that people just can't seem to get enough of. It's the Thumbprint News. The Thumbprint News is free and full of interesting stories that focus on what's important in our lives. Stories that touch on this area's rich history, unique places, and the diverse cultures and people. You'll be in the know when you read the Thumbprint News. Go to thumbprintnews.com and read the paper online for free today.
Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we were talking about the largest SUVs, some of the most extravagant SUVs ever built. We jumped around a little bit because we were talking about the Karlmann King and the H1 Humvee, but then we kind of started a chronological order, starting back with the Chevy Suburban, which was introduced in 1935. But going on from there, we talked a little bit about the WC-53 Power Wagon. Well, it's not a Power Wagon, the WC-53 Dodge, and then we got up into the 1960s and started to mention the late 1960s, the Chevy Suburban. And the early development of the Ford Bronco. Now, of course, all of these vehicles are going to need their own episodes and talking about their development and things at one point or another. We probably should even, if we're going to stay with this chronological thing, we need to back up a little bit and we need to talk about the full-size Jeep Grand Wagoneer for a little bit. Certainly not the largest SUV ever built, but it is the largest Jeep brand SUV ever built. And, of course, it was made to specifically be the family off-road vehicle. You used to have one of those, didn't you? Or your family did?
For a short time. It was my grandfather's. I can't remember the year. I want to say his was an 86 or an 87, I believe.
Did it have the miles of wood grain?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, wood grain all along the sides and on the interior. Had that nice red leather-looking stuff.
Like the pleather?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Had a funky smell. I loved it, but it just
like
reminded me
the fake leather smell or like the old people smell?
Like the old farm equipment smell.
Old farm equipment smell.
Yeah, it was an old farm Jeep, so it got hauled around, stored inside a barn, stored inside the garage, near the tractors, all the implements and all that. So it kind of took on its own unique farm smell.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So certainly Jeep has never built the largest of SUVs.
No.
They did build a the J2000 truck and all that was based on the same platform that the Grand Wagoneer was. But so we're going back and we're talking about the big ones. And we talked about how the Bronco went up to being full-size based off of the F-150 platform for 1978, the Chevy Blazer. Then we have the Dodge Ramcharger. I don't remember the year the Ramcharger came out. Was that 72, John? Do you remember that?
I don't know off the top of my head. I can find out, though. Here.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Look it up. Why not? Let's do this. Look up your notes.
Dodge Ramcharger, built by Dodge from 74 to 93.
74. Okay,
Yep.
So the Dodge Ramcharger came out in 74. Same thing, went through a couple different generations. It was a two-door, full-size SUV. They never had like a mini version like the Broncos did.
There's an interesting side note here, actually.
Give us it.
Plymouth actually had a version.
The Trail Duster.
Yep, the Trail Duster. Offered 74 to 81. And we can wrap up the entire Plymouth line of SUVs in that this was the only Plymouth SUV.
Oh, was it really now?
According to what I'm reading here.
I guess I never realized that before or even thought
Yeah.
of that. I can't think of another Plymouth SUV.
I can't off the top of my head, but again, this is the internet, so.
So you don't, well, yeah, the internet. So you don't consider like the Plymouth Voyager minivan an SUV?
No, I mean, it was kind of a sport utility vehicle, I suppose.
Yeah, not four-wheel. Oh, they had the all-wheel drive version.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I've hit some back roads. My cousin had one for a short time when he was first learning how to drive. We hit some back dirt roads in that. We had a lot of fun in that van.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
So, like you said, we kind of wrap up Dodge's history there, but let's make an interesting side note about this. There were a couple of companies out there with Dodge that decided, because at the time, Ford had, of course, the big Bronco, and they didn't make a four-door version, but another company did. We can talk about that in a minute. But Dodge decided, or not Dodge, but a couple of aftermarket upfitter companies decided they wanted a big four-door Dodge SUV. And there was custom conversions out of Claiborne, Texas, that made a four-door SUV that was similar to a Chevy Suburban, but it was based on the Dodge chassis. And as you know, I used to have one of those.
I remember that. That thing was very cool.
It was a different vehicle. And then there was Bear out of Minnesota, who also stretched them out and built approximately 35 of those. So those were custom one-offs. They weren't a big production vehicle. So once again, it's kind of a side note. Dodge has really never been in the large SUV market, besides the Ramchargers and whatnot, which are a short wheelbase vehicle. And we're kind of talking about like long, not limousine long here, but what is the bigger SUVs? So, like I said, that's kind of a side note. Then we went into, of course, earlier we were talking about the military vehicles and things like that. Then we got into the SUV boom, of course, of the 80s and 90s, where we were looking at the smaller SUVs like the Explorers and the small Blazers, the baby Blazers, and things like that. But big SUVs still hadn't gotten the very biggest yet. Even, the 80s, I guess there's another honorable mention. We need to talk about the Lamborghini LM002, or
Yeah.
the Rambo Lambo.
That thing's funny looking.
Funny, you don't like the look of that?
It depends which package. There's a couple of them I'm looking at here that it kind of looks like a crossbreed of an Avalanche and a Land Cruiser almost.
Yeah, but they had a V12, a marine-based engine in them, and I think they only made a little over 300 of them in
328 according to
328.
This page. Yeah.
Think we can get one from the museum?
I'd love to find one. I think that'd be a very cool thing to have.
Yeah, I'd like to drive one sometime too.
That too. Never ridden in a Lamborghini, but
You haven't?
nope. I've been in a Porsche and a Land Rover. Is probably the most exotic things of it. Take that back. I had the Rolls Royce, a right-hand drive Rolls Royce. It was my grandfather's. I drove about half a mile.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've never done that. Although I do have two Porsches, as you know.
Oh.
I have a front Porsche and a back Porsche.
Oh God.
Yeah, you don't like that?
Yeah, that's a good one.
I
That's a good
don't
one.
think it's that good. So we were talking earlier too about how the Chevy really seemed to have been, or General Motors, not just Chevy, because GMC and Cadillac were building them as well, all the same platform. General Motors seemed to be dominating the large SUV market for many, many years.
Oh yeah.
Ford, not to be outdone, needed to enter the market because Ford and Chevy have been competitors since day one. In a future episode, we need to do that. I know you like your Chevy trucks. I like my Ford trucks. We're gonna have to do the whole Chevy versus Ford
Them's
thing.
fighting words.
Yeah, there you go.
But we can do it.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do it. But Ford decided, decided sorry, wrong words. I'm using the wrong words here, John. Other companies decided for Ford that they needed to be in the SUV market. Namely, there was a company called Centurion. Have you ever looked up those?
I haven't looked them up, but I've heard of them.
So what Centurion did, Centurion took the F-350 crew cab four-door Ford truck, and they cut the back of the cab off and then modified the back of the cab to accept Ford Bronco quarter panels and roof. And so they made essentially a four-door Ford Bronco that was about the size of a Chevy Suburban. One of the benefits to the Centurion is, unlike the Suburban, which was only available up into a 3/4 ton or 2500 series package, the Centurion you could order as a 3500 series package, or 350. It was based on an F350.
Yeah.
So you could get a true 1-ton four-wheel drive SUV for the first time.
I did find a picture. That thing looks very cool.
I had one of those years ago. It was in pretty bad shape. It was a flip through the business, but
Gotcha.
they are pretty neat. And
Yeah.
they made a couple thousand of those. They were pretty successful. And Ford took notice to that. So Ford decided that they needed to make their own four-door SUV, and they eventually launched, I believe for the 97 model year, the Ford Expedition. Which is a pretty sizable vehicle. Now, they still make the Expedition to this day. In fact, right now, if you're going to order a brand new SUV and you want towing capacity, the highest available towing capacity that I've been able to find is the Expedition Max at 9,200 pounds.
Nice.
So, and that's the Expedition when it came out was based off of the F-150 platform, but now we're talking still a half-ton truck, essentially.
Yeah.
Chevy at the same time was building their Suburban, which eventually they got rid of the 3/4 ton option and went down to the half-ton option only. And so now we have these two half-ton SUVs that are competing with each other. And that seemed to be the way that the market was going to go. And then, of course, out of left field, Ford decides that they're going to build the true king of the SUVs for the 2000 model year. They're going to introduce the Ford Excursion. And as you know, I'm a big Ford Excursion fan.
Oh, yeah.
Got a couple of them.
Yep.
This is, I don't even know if it's arguably, because this is on the books, the largest mass-produced, at least, largest mass-produced SUV ever built. They sold this thing back in 2000 as essentially being that, the king of the SUVs. It's so large. You need this thing because of its size.
Yeah.
They prided themselves in it. And the Ford Excursion, it's kind of the end of our list here, but we'd like to talk about other vehicles as well, too. But the Ford Excursion is just so overkill on everything. You're talking a 3/4 ton truck, F-250 chassis, available with a diesel engine.
That's my favorite thing about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, a GM for the 2000 model year that was the last year for their diesel. So in 2000, that was the only year that you could order either a GM or a Ford diesel SUV.
Oh, wow.
And then GM was out of the market and Ford entered the market. So it was almost like Ford decided they were going to take off where GM left off
Yeah.
back in 91 with their big monster SUVs that they used to do.
Yeah.
So, there was an article. Did you see the Detroit News article on the Ford Excursion this week?
That I had not, no.
Okay. The Ford Excursion was produced partially because of economic reasons and various other reasons, only for 6 model years, 2000 through 2005, and then they took some leftover ones and they sold them in Mexico for 2006 as a 2006, but they were still leftover 2005.
Yeah.
And there's a whole history that we can get into sometimes of the diesel. It's not really like the Dieselgate that Volkswagen had recently, but it was an issue where they switched mid-year 2003 from their 7.3 diesel to their 6-liter diesel.
Yeah.
Which we're going to do a whole episode on that in the future because there's a whole crowd of people that love the 6-liter, but the majority of the truck and automotive public thinks the 6-liter is garbage. So
I've heard that.
yeah, so we're going to have to talk about that. So that was one of the things that killed the Excursion. Interesting side note, John, I don't know if I told you this or not. I sold some parts to a guy yesterday, met up with him, and I pulled up, and the guy says, "Oh, you're driving an old Excursion." And I says, "Yeah, I am." And he says, "Huh." He says, "I designed most of the body on that thing."
Oh, wow. Very cool.
Yeah, so I tried to get him to come on the podcast with us, but he said he's still working for Ford, and
Gotcha.
yeah, he just couldn't talk about that.
Understandable.
So, absolutely. So, but the Ford Excursion, so in the U.S. at least, hasn't been made since 2005. Now, most of our listeners have probably seen one on the road. They made a lot of them. I think they made a little over 50,000 of them per year. You want to look up the numbers on that, John?
Thereabouts. I had it up here just a moment ago.
I know the numbers dwindled with each production year. I think 2000 was
So
the
the
most.
most they ever made was in 2000.
Okay.
50,786.
In 2000 alone?
Yep, just in 2000. The next year was 34,710, and it goes down. Last year production 2005, 16,283.
Oh, that's it for 05.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, that's pretty low production. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about the Ford Excursion here in a minute, after a word from our sponsors.
It's cute when Rover shakes a paw for you.
Good boy.
And when he rolls over on command.
That's it, buddy.
But when he brings in fleas and ticks from the outside,
Rover.
not so much. Rover can't help what time of year it is, but ABC Home and Commercial Services can. They're the best in pets, so give them a call and they'll come around and treat your yard. ABC Home and Commercial Services, 810-794-5678. Online at abcbees.com.
We're back in the Thin Line Off-Road Studios today with Wheelin'.
Yes, we are. So before we went to break, we were talking about the Ford Excursion, the self-proclaimed king of the SUVs, because that's how Ford basically marketed them back in the day. And we were talking about how they only existed for 6 years, and production declined after those 6 years of production. But the Detroit News just did an article this week. Did you see that article, John?
I did not have a chance to get through that, no.
Okay, well, the Detroit News basically said that the Excursion has obtained cult status, which I got to agree with a little bit because, I own 2 of them, and I know a lot of people that do, and people are just keeping these things alive. My reasoning behind it might be different from somebody else's reasoning, but for example, my 2003 7.3 model that I have has an 11,000 pound tow rating. They, as we talked earlier, the Chevy Suburban and the, I think the Chevy Suburban's only like 6,600 pounds or something, and then the Expedition XL is like 9,200 pounds tow rating. So this is
Bit of a
this
difference.
is still, yeah. They don't make a 3/4 or 1 ton SUV, with the exception of the Suburban 3500 HD, which is available now, but it's only available to governments and the military.
Well, somebody's got to know somebody who can get that.
Yeah, you got to have a friend at a GM dealership, I'm assuming.
Pretty sure I do. I can make some phone calls after the show.
Yeah, is it the same thing there? I'm not sure I'm ready for that payment on that 90,000 SUV, but
Maybe back burner project.
Okay,
we'll do
there
that
we go.
later.
One of the really neat things that's going on, and I mentioned in that Detroit News article, is that there are several companies across the country now that are continuing to build the Ford Excursion. What they're doing is they're taking the Ford Super Duties that were made up to 2016. They were very little change. These are the same front doors, same basic body structure, and they're cutting the back half of the F-250 off, and they're getting old wrecked Excursions and whatnot, and they are welding them together and creating 2014, 2015, 2016 Excursions.
I like the idea of that.
Absolutely. There's even
Very
a couple
cool.
of companies now that are taking and updating even that now to the 17, 18, 19 models. The question remains with a lot of the fans of the Ford Excursion. There's even like a couple Ford Excursion clubs. Well, there's one called the Ford Excursion Club on Facebook. But there's a number of Ford Excursion clubs out there. The question remains, is Ford going to ever bring this thing back? Do you think that Ford is ever going to bring back this essentially one-ton SUV? Or if not, do you think somebody else is?
I think inevitably a lot of this stuff's been making a comeback. You look at the Blazer and the Bronco, they're coming out with new versions of those. Those have been out for a long time.
We're going to have to talk about those because, yeah, the new Bronco's coming back, and all the spy photos of that look pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. I've seen a few of the non-spy versions of pictures on those.
Yeah.
I encountered a Blazer at a local food restaurant the other day it was different. Wasn't quite
it's
what
different.
I expected.
Is that your political response there, John?
It's neutral enough, so I'll stand by that.
It's neutral enough. Okay, yeah.
I think eventually they'll bring it or a variation of it back. Just you build on you take something that has such a reputation and a cult following like that, they're going to bring it back. I mean, the demand is there. It's just a matter of updating it for modern production standards and all that fun emissions stuff and everything.
Well, yeah. See, that was the thing. The Excursion had 4 different engine options in 3 basic trim packages over its 6-year run. So you could get when they first came out, you could get the 7.3 diesel. You could get the V10, which, the guys, there's people out there that'll say they get 14, 15, 16 miles a gallon. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
It's a 10, 12 mile a gallon engine. A lot of power with the V10. And then, of course, there was the 5.4 V8, which was a little anemic for such a large vehicle, but it worked out all right.
Not to mention the typical 5.4 concerns down the road in serviceability.
You could probably speak more intelligently on that than even I can because of your experience working for the Ford-based part dealership. What kind of problems did you see with the 5.4 Excursions?
The biggest issues a lot of those have is the spark plugs. It has a tendency to pull some of the threads out when you're changing them. There's different kits available to repair that. You have a lot of problems with them. Inevitably, trying to do an estimate for repair on that, you have to, you can't give a definitive answers. You have a chance you could have one spark plug that comes out without issue, or you could have all 8 of them have problems during removal, which requires the additional labor times to repair that.
I've heard they've had the same problems with some of the V10 versions too.
Yes. Yep. The kit, I don't remember off the top of my head, but there are 3 or 4 different engines that kit is built for to repair those problems.
Okay, so, we already talked a little bit earlier about the 6-liter, which was introduced for 03, being a problematic engine, the 6-liter diesel, and we're talking about the spark plug issues. And I also know the cam phasers was an issue and some oil leak issues with both the 5.4 and the V10. So if one were to go out and buy a used Excursion now because they want one, they're a large family, towing capacity, whatever, and granted, they're buying a 14-year-old vehicle at the newest, so they might be buying a 20-year-old vehicle now.
Yeah.
Which version do you think that they should buy?
It's all up to the user. You look at a diesel engine, you're adding a lot more complexities in the driveline. Your cost to service that goes up because it's a diesel. I mean, any time you go diesel, that happens. But you end up with something that is going to last you a significantly longer time.
Yeah, so I know that, personally, I'm a fan of the 7.3 diesel. We have 2 excursions that both have the 7.3 diesel, but even those had their problems.
Oh, yeah.
The biggest thing was the oil pan rust out. Mm-hmm. So I guess our listeners, if you're going out and you're looking at an excursion, personally, I would probably look for a 7.3. If you're going to look at a 6-liter diesel, you want to see a lot of service records that some of the known problems have been fixed. The EGR systems, the head gaskets, the head studs, things like that. They call it bulletproofing, and we'll talk about that in a future episode probably as well.
Yeah, I never saw any of the 6 liters. Any of the ones we ever got in were the 7.3s. I believe we had one customer had a 5.4, but overall they were all the 7.3s. And like you said, the guys love them.
They really are, and that's where that cult status goes. They're just keeping these things going. And something that's interesting from a collectability standpoint is the 7.3 excursions, especially the one that we own. Since we've owned it, the Kelly Blue Book value has gone up about $3,500.
Oh, wow.
Up, not down.
Huh.
In the last 4 years.
That's interesting.
So they're becoming a collectible vehicle.
Yeah.
Quickly. And the biggest thing, if you're going to go out and look for a 7.3 excursion, look underneath it and see if the oil pan's rotted out, see if you have any oil leaks, things like that. And then some of the other things, the front axles on the excursions were known to have some issues with the vacuum hub system.
Saw a lot of that where I was too.
You did? Typically, did you guys repair it back to the way it worked with the vacuum hubs, or did you put like the Warren aftermarkets on it?
So the customers that we had wanted it to be like it was from the factory.
Okay.
So we managed to track down a lot of the harder to find Ford parts for that vehicle.
Okay.
And restored as much as possible to what it was from the factory. It had almost 350,000 miles on it when we first got it. And it came back a couple times just for regular, service interval work. And the thing it wouldn't die.
Well, yeah, I mean, they really don't. I know we've got 305 on our one excursion, and we've got, almost the same on the other one. The other one came from Canada, so it's in kilometers. But if you do the math, it's a little over 300,000. And then our previous excursion that we had, we ran to 365,000 miles.
Nice.
So they do tend to go for a long period of time. A couple things that I would also watch out for the buyers out there looking to buy one of these things. You want to look for rust. As something to take note of, the rear doors of the Ford Excursion are larger than the F-250 and 350 doors. They're longer. So they're specific to the 2000 to 2005 Ford Excursions. You want to make sure that you don't have any rust issue, especially in the rear doors. Front doors are the same as the Super Duties, so they're a little cheaper, but current kind of going rate out there for a set of clean rear excursion doors, which are not made anymore, and you cannot get them through the Ford dealership. I've tried. Is about $350 a piece for a used door.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. The rocker panel rust is pretty common with them, and then what they call the dog leg area, which is that would be like on a pickup truck, the cab corner. So between the rear doors and the front of the rear tires, that dogleg area is a rust issue that's very well known. Even on the cleanest of excursions, you'll see rust in those areas. And those parts are not available either. A good body man can modify cab corners from, say, an F-250 to work, but it is a lot of labor. So definitely want to watch for rust there. And if we have anybody that's in the sheet metal stamping industry that's listening, start making those parts. Start making those parts. Make some rear doors for these things and make the dog legs. The Excursion has obtained this cult status. It's something that's going to be around for a while. John and I talked about whether or not they're going to bring it back and the popularity of it. I'm optimistic that it'll happen, but there's been rumors going on for years around that. There's a solid axle full-size SUV here that we're talking about, and 05 was the last year of it. Nobody's built something like that since. So is it a bit of history? Is the king of the SUVs dead? Are we now looking at the queens of SUVs or the princes of SUVs? Is there going to be, what is the next king? I mean, I'd like to see something from Dodge. I mean, if Dodge wanted to bring out a Ram-based, or not even Dodge anymore, now they're Ram trucks. If Ram wanted to do a Ram big SUV with a Cummins diesel,
that would be awesome.
Man, that thing would sell, wouldn't it?
Oh my God, yeah.
I'd love to see that. GM, put the Duramax in the Suburban. What's going on here? I mean, you can get the Suburban with the 5.3. You can get the Escalade and the Yukon with the 6-liter and bigger engines now. I think I haven't kept up on my GM, but same thing. Put a diesel in it. Make this thing so it'll tow 10,000, 12,000 pounds. Who knows? I'd like to see the future be another large SUV, at least for families like mine. I mean, we got a lot of kids, as you know. So, what are your predictions on the big SUVs, John?
Like I said, I still think they'll eventually see a resurgence. We'll definitely see a comeback at some point in the future of it. How it's going to look compared to the original, time will tell on that. Everybody went to all this independent suspension. I don't know if we'll see a solid axle as much as I'd like to. Mm-hmm. I mean, the future, we'll have to wait and see what happens with it. I think it'll definitely make a comeback at some point, either by name or an updated version of that.
For our listeners, John and I have both mentioned the solid axle. We'll talk about that in the future as well. If you're a kind of a newbie to the 4x4 world, you may not know what we're talking about. There's two different types of front suspensions in your off-road vehicles. You either have a solid axle or you have independent front suspension. Solid axle is a solid beam that goes from one tire to another. And very simple design. Goes back 100 years. The independent suspension, which really started to show itself in the 80s, is where you have a kind of a car-based front suspension with CV shafts, and the tires can operate, and the wheels can operate independently of each other up and down. So we're going to probably eventually do an IFS versus solid axle episode. I can see that in the future for us. But, what we're talking about here is the king of the SUVs, the big ones. So today, really, even though the Excursion was the king of the SUVs, and there's a cult status, and they're bringing them back, there's these companies that are making them out of old F-250s or new F-250s. Are we back to the Karlmann King? I mean, is that the biggest SUV you can buy today? Is that the largest SUV you can buy today based on the Ford F-550 chassis with a solid axle up front? It's certainly the only large SUV that I know of that you can get a solid axle in still.
I mean, it's definitely up there. I know there's a lot of other small one-off companies making some of this stuff. It seems to be one of the more larger production in terms of quantity being made.
Well, I mean, Karlmann's not producing a lot of those yet. I think they're almost still in the prototype phase, but it's kind of still an interesting development that they're doing. So, can I borrow $2.2 million from you, John, so I can buy one of these and check it out?
If I had it, I'm sorry, I'd have to say no because I'd probably get one myself. I know they are made in Italy. One of the articles I was reading yesterday did say that they're looking to bring production to the U.S. on that soon too.
Are they? Now, do you think they're going to stay in this high-end, clientele market, or are they going to eventually try to knock it down to something that I'm not thinking that they're necessarily going to be able to, the regular family is going to be able to afford it, but do you think that there's
just out of basic business principles, I would hope that they'd try to market it to a larger consumer base. And right now, they're very few and far between of people that can and would want to buy something like that. So if they can knock the price down on that, gets more people interested, I mean, I think that's a much better business model than sticking with $2.2 million. I mean, even if they cut it down to $1 million for one, yeah, you're not going to have all the cool features and all that, but just for the business model, I think it'd be better for them.
Yeah, I would agree with you. We've already seen now with the new Platinum Edition F350, we've seen the first $100,000 production pickup truck.
Oh, yeah.
I have seen that now in the SUV market. We're creeping in that 90 range with some of the Escalades and things like that. And then you can up option them over 100,000. So the question, I guess, remains now is, would somebody order maybe $110,000, $120,000 large SUV that has a 10,000 pound towing capacity?
I think there's definitely people out there that would.
You do?
Oh, yeah. You look at some of these people, like the King Ranch editions, some of the Ford trucks. The price point's there. I think you get it to something that's affordable in a timely manner. I think you'd sell it.
Well, there you go, manufacturers. If you're listening to this, John and I are in concurrence on this. We believe that there's still a market out there for the large SUV. So whether that means to bring the Excursion back or to bring the Karlmann King down to the price point where the average American family can afford it, which we don't think is going to happen, or say the Suburban, if you'd like to bring that and beef it up a little bit. You don't have to go to a solid axle Chevy, but I mean, if you make this thing so it'll tow 10, 12,000 pounds, we'd like to see that. Or make the Suburban 3500 HD available to the public. Or lastly, Dodge, if you want to build a Cummins powered, I keep saying Dodge, but Ram trucks, if you want to build a Cummins powered large SUV, there's a market for it. So that's the question. Who is going to be the next one to come to the market with the true king, or should we even dare say now the emperor of the SUVs? So with that, John, we don't know. And hopefully we can do an episode in the future, whoever launches this. But I think it's wrap this up. I mean, really, the Excursion's the king of the mass-produced, and the Karlmann King is probably the king of the high-priced SUVs.
I think I would agree with that.
All right. Well, have a good one, everyone, and we will talk to you on the next episode.
We'll see you next time.